The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here along with Dan Rylance, and on this edition we're very pleased to be joined by two very active members of our local Green Party on campus, Michelle Bogden and Adam Stern. They are both co-chairs of the Oshkosh Campus Greens, and not to be confused with the Lake Winnebago Green Party, but we're going to talk about the differences and the similarities and how, if at all, they work hand in hand and so forth. But we're pleased to welcome them here, and the one reason why we wanted to have you folks here tonight was because you've been very active in cleaning up some of the herbicides in Millers Bay and making efforts there. And so we wanted to kind of find out, you know, what you've done thus far. Maybe you could give us a little history, first of all, as far as for viewers who may not be aware of it. What has been going on in Millers Bay? Who wants to field that one?
I guess I can start.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much where the main problem lies is, was it last year, last spring?
Yeah, it was July 2007.
Yeah, they,
Yep.
there's a big weed problem in Millers Bay. The problem is that there's a lot of weeds, and a lot of fishermen, you know, having a lot of troubles getting their boats in and out of that area. So there's a big complaint because, you know, the weeds overgrowth is, you know, harder and harder. So what they decided to do to kind of resolve this problem was kind of dump these herbicides right into the lake to kill the weeds, in an attempt to kill the weeds. You know, not really addressing the public about it, and you know, not really completely evaluating, you know, the cost of that. There's intake, you know, right down the shore from Millers Bay, you know, for our drinking water, and you know, that's, you know, we just feel the public should be addressed about that, and there's definitely other alternatives that we're looking at, like a mechanical weed harvester that could go in there and do just the job that these herbicides could do, but without the chemical, you know, danger to that. So.
Well, when you talk about chemical dangers in the water treatment plant right down the street, still part of Menominee Park, I mean, is it your suggestion that the water treatment plant cannot get these chemicals out of the water before it gets to our, you know, our faucet?
We acted with other members of our group, just kind of like any kind of consumer could. We actually printed out labels of these chemicals on the internet, just like anybody could, just to see what they had to say, and there was definite clear instructions that said you shouldn't have this water anywhere near like any kind of water intake, or these chemicals anywhere.
You should not swim, you should not touch this water, you know, for a certain period of time. I believe it was 2 weeks, though I'm not positive on that, but it was a certain period of time, and meanwhile, you know, people could, you know, get that from the water intake at the same time. It could float right over there, because it's only, you know, a little over 1,000 feet away that they're putting these herbicides in. And there are 4 different kinds I know that they use, so.
Okay, all right. And so what are you doing right now? I know in an email that I received, you're working to convince the Oshkosh government to invest in this mechanical harvester or mechanical remover. You know, have you looked at what the costs are involved in that, and what kind of progress are you making with the local government?
Right, well, they're going to be making a decision actually mid-March, I believe, on what they're going to do until 2010, and what they're working on right now is still using the herbicides till 2010, and the mechanical harvester hasn't even brought into that. So what we're going to do is go to that city council meeting and try to say, you know, well, maybe it's too late to buy a mechanical harvester for this year, but we should really look into this before 2009, 2010. You know, we need to look into our options and see how big of a danger this is and really research it, because if this is an issue, we don't want to be that water to get to 10,000, over 10,000 of our citizens. It's just not right. It shouldn't just be, you know, well, this is what we're going to do, and it's kind of a shame. And we need to look into the fact that you buy a mechanical harvester once. Meanwhile, otherwise they'd have to buy 4 herbicides every year to dump into this. So it'd be a slightly larger fee for a mechanical harvester versus buying herbicides year after year after year. So it would be an investment, but I think it's one we could look into, especially when the city is receiving money to deal with this issue specifically.
Okay.
Now, my understanding is that there's a $25,000 appropriation that Assemblyman Gordon Hentz was partially responsible for getting, and that this is already cut and dry, that the Parks Director is simply going to come to the council meeting with DNR approval, and they're going to spend the $25,000 this coming summer on the chemicals. Is that correct?
Yeah. From what I hear, the Parks Board pretty much said, well, this is what we've decided. This is going to happen, even though the vote has not come out yet. It shouldn't have already been decided because the council meeting hasn't been done. The public has not spoken on this issue, so it shouldn't have been decided. This whole issue still needs to be open for discussion.
So you'd like a public meeting before the council voted to use the $25,000 for?
Well, I think, you know, one part of this campaign, you know, that we're trying to address here is that not only would we like to see this change happen, but we'd like to see this become a public issue, because I mean, it kind of seems like a little sneaky, like a little under the table, just kind of like all of a sudden they just decided to put these chemicals in there, and it's like what we're really going to try to do is go to that meeting, but go to that meeting with a lot of back and a lot of support from a lot of public awareness that we had raised before that. So that's all part of it, just trying to address the public maybe with media attention, with interviews like this, just kind of say, hey, you know what, this is something that's happening in your area, in your water. This is your topic to speak on, and so to get kind of public to really come and really realize and be a part of the decision process.
Adam, do you know if this is going to be on the agenda for the next Common Council meeting, or the one 2 weeks after, or do you have a date?
Not sure. We haven't really got to the agenda yet. I think we're still in the planning process as far as what
the agenda
date.
wouldn't be out yet, but I'm wondering, we should tell our viewers as to what council meeting this would be. There would be one next Tuesday, I think.
Which I'm not sure that this show would air before then.
Right, oh, that's right, yeah, or the first,
well, the council meetings are the 2nd and the 4th Tuesdays of the month.
Right.
So, I mean, you're looking at definitely doing this in March, correct? Okay.
Right. And
it's not up to you, it's up to whenever the Parks Board puts it on the agenda, or who is this up to?
I'm not sure. From a source I heard that they were going to be possibly deciding the issue in mid-March, so I would assume it would be the second week in March.
Okay, well, we should keep an eye on that, yeah.
Yep.
The Parks Board is only advisory, so the Parks Director would have to bring, if they had a recommendation to the council, and then they would vote up or down on it.
Yep, that's what's happening.
But you talk about how, Adam, you use the words kind of sneaky and underhanded, and I mean, this is not the first time we've heard about that in relation to our Parks Department, our Parks Director, and the Parks Board. So this is not an unfamiliar event, if you will.
It's a repetitive pattern.
And I think that is worthy of taking a look at in and of itself.
Absolutely. And
not by the Greens necessarily,
but certainly have a public meeting. I mean, what does the chemicals do to the fish in Millers Bay? I mean, we're killing weeds.
Yeah.
And if we're trying to get rid of the weeds so the fishermen can catch fish, I'd kind of like to know what happened.
Actually, it's interesting. I also read that the harvester would harvest the weeds and take the weeds out, and then the chemicals just kill the weeds, and the weeds sink to the bottom, which does ruin habitat and kind of spread out, and like that gets rid of the fish in that area because
it doesn't allow the oxygen.
Right. Yeah. It decreases the oxygen in that water area.
Well, that can't be good for fish then.
I wouldn't think so.
It simply can't. So it seems like while you're trying to kill one thing, you're also probably killing the very thing that you're trying to protect.
Absolutely.
If you will. So what are some of the other things that these chemicals do? What are some of the dangers involved in them?
Well, basically, you wouldn't want to swim in there, and people do like to swim in Miller's Bay. You wouldn't be able to go in there while it's going on. And from what I've noticed, they haven't had, any public attention, this is what we're doing this time, so, beware. But you wouldn't want to drink from it, certainly. So if those chemicals are getting by our water intake, how many people are drinking that for how long, how long is that dangerous? We need a lot more research into this. And as a campus organization, we don't have as much power to be able to look into these things. We don't have as much technology as what the city could do themselves or the DNR. And the thing is, the mayor signed an agreement that we were going to become more environmentally friendly. We were going to start doing these things. And one of those things is to stop using chemicals wherever we can. And so this would be a great step forward if the mayor could, do this thing by the harvester instead.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good point.
Yeah, that is.
I mean, because there's a big production publicity that we had joined by signing that mayor's thing. And here's a good example, a test case, where they're going to follow what you signed.
Yep.
Right.
Gives them an opportunity to put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else that you think the public should be aware of as far as this particular issue goes?
I would just say, I was gonna add to it. Like, I wish they would have a little bit more transparency. So it doesn't seem so sneaky or doesn't seem so like, yeah, we're just gonna try this out. Hopefully, it doesn't do anything bad. Because these are dangerous chemicals. We looked it up, and like the public wasn't addressed about it. Like there should be a lot more transparency in the system, where the public is completely aware. That the chemicals are being dropped at this time. Like don't be in the water at this time if chemicals are going to be dropped, or these certain chemicals do this and that. So I mean, a note to the public. Make sure you're active on these things. Don't, I guess obviously don't just assume that everything, is clear cut and that nothing, like this might be happening. So it's like, it's really good just to be aware, about these issues and like about, the environment around you.
Well, and even if you shouldn't be swimming in a particular area where these chemicals are put, or, dogs shouldn't be swimming there or whatever, you have to, I think, as you both have said, alert the public that it is going on, so that people, if they are inclined to go swim there, that they don't. And if they are inclined to maybe break the law and let their dog swim there, they don't do that either. Health and safety should be at a premium, I would think.
Absolutely. Do you have any faculty advisors or biologists that are kind of in your mindset in terms of being at the meeting too for the council that would speak about, have you talked to any faculty members on campus?
We've talked to a couple that would help us out. I would want to talk to them specifically before volunteering them.
Sure, no, I understand.
But David Barnhill is our personal, our organization advisor.
Advisor for your.
Right. Yeah. So.
I would think that would add credibility to your presentation.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if it's the same kind of weeds or whatever, but in Lake Butamore too, there seems to be, I just noticed it this last year, a huge, just a massive proliferation of weeds and lily pads like nothing I've ever seen before. And then I see these big pieces of equipment sitting on the side of the, on the other side of the guardrail, and I don't know if they're related to these weeds at all and these lily pads. Have you guys noticed that as you travel up and down over the Lake Butamore Bridge at all?
Yeah, it's kind of,
Is this the same thing that we're talking about here?
I really wouldn't be able to say. I'm not exactly too, sure on that subject exactly, but this is when you go by a pond or you go by a lake and you see some of the colors of algae, and you know kind of what algae would look like, but then sometimes you see some kind of scummy stuff on the outside, or just some stuff that just doesn't look right. And I think it's good to question that kind of stuff and just maybe look into it and figure out what exactly that is, But yeah, you always notice that when you drive by, Lake Butamore, you drive past a certain spot in a bay in Winnebago, and you see, and your kind of question is like, is that natural? You're not sure. Maybe you look into it.
Well, and the equipment that I saw, I don't know if it's related at all to the weeds and the lily pads, but the weeds and stuff are there, and the equipment is there, and I've not ever seen it before. So, okay, so very good. So sometime in March, you guys will be going before the Oshkosh Common Council to talk about this and to try and make a good, strong, wholehearted push for a mechanical harvester.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and what's the cost for the harvester? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure the exact cost, but you know, obviously it would pay itself off because it's a lot longer lasting than just buying chemicals
Sure,
every year.
sure, okay.
So.
Right.
All right, good enough. Well, let's talk about the Campus Greens as a whole. How long have you been in existence?
Long time.
Yeah.
That's good.
You know, leadership switches. Sure. Every 3 or 4 years. So this is our first year actually as co-chairs. Michelle was co-chair last year.
Well, starting the summer of 2007, I was a co-chair, yeah.
Okay, all right.
How many hours a week do you guys put into this?
Well, pretty good amount. I like 10, 15 hours a week. It's almost like another part-time job.
And this is all volunteer, this
Oh,
is,
yeah.
This is good civic responsibility on your part, huh?
Right, right.
Yeah.
We really do, feel that's really important to be active, in your community, especially in a campus community. Especially a city like this where, the campus is, kind of right in the middle, and then there's the rest of the community on the outside. It's like, if we can really try to make some really good change and get that change noticed on our campus, then hopefully that could spread to our broader community.
Sure.
As well as reaching out and also doing things like this with the broader community as well, like going past the campus. But yeah, we really feel it's important just to be civically engaged.
What kinds of other efforts are the Oshkosh Campus Greens involved in? I know you've had some fundraisers recently, especially during Valentine's Day and so forth. But what are some of the causes that your group tries to champion?
Right now, one of our other biggest campaigns is trying to become a fair trade campus. And what we would do is basically have UW Oshkosh become the first declared fair trade campus in the United States. There are some that in Europe are declared fair trade, but nobody in the United States has done this yet. And basically becoming a fair trade campus would mean basically supplying whenever we can fair trade coffee, and that would be in like meetings, that would be in Black Hat, that would be basically anywhere where the dining contract would allow us to put fair trade in.
Coffee or tea.
And tea, right, and chocolate.
And explain for viewers what you mean by fair trade, because we see it in churches, we see it in groups such as yours. Just tell people a little bit about what fair trade means.
Fair trade pretty much it's products that are coming from underdeveloped third world countries, some in Latin America, and other areas of the world, Africa, areas where usually there's these farmers where they grow these products like cocoa beans and coffee, and they make certain handmade products, and usually these farmers they sell their products to these huge corporations who don't really give them a fair price for these goods. So what fair trade is pretty much declaring that those farmers and those craftsmen are going to get a fair price for the goods and the things that they grow. And so pretty much we really want to try to make our university, Fair Trade University, just to kind of bring that one step closer to give people more of an option to buy fair trade things. It's kind of like you kind of vote with your wallet, like when you buy things, like you're voting for what kind of causes and things you like to see happen. So.
And does a certain percentage of the money that you spend go to those underdeveloped nations and the farmers and craftsmen? Or how does that work?
I'm pretty sure the fair trade certification process is a nonprofit process, so I'm sure there's some sort of funds that set aside for that. But pretty much it's just allowing. It's kind of like allowing for these low-income farmers in these third world countries to really have a voice and really kind of have an alternative route rather than just like supplying to these gigantic mega companies that are going to give them a really cheap price for their goods. So.
Okay.
They get a set price.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was an editorial in the Oshkosh Northwestern yesterday, the day before, about the university students coming through for the community by agreeing to go another $700,000 for the sports complex, added to a $550,000 before. Is this where you want the university to go as far as your awareness and your interests are concerned?
No, not particularly.
Yeah.
They don't really ask the students where we want our money to go. They pretty much just say, hey, this would make us look really good for, incoming students. We should really work on this, or, we can get more people to go to this and make more money for our university. But really, meanwhile, our library and a lot of our classrooms are overlooked, and they're poor. Sometimes we have to change rooms in the middle of our class so that we can actually have a good class. It's distracting. And a lot of our classes are being offered less often. And we have to go to school longer because of all this, and our tuition is raised. So we go highly into debt for all this stuff that they volunteer our money for.
I mean, and just to be fair, there are some things that we do spend our money wisely on, and maybe that it's maybe that have been more publicly addressed. Like for example, we have a new the Chancellor Richard Wells, who is I think is excellent Chancellor. He put together this this campus sustainability team, kind of like a charge to kind of a bunch of group of faculty, staff, and students to create a plan to make your campus, sustainable, in a sense. And they just finished with the draft, or they just finished with the final plan. It's going to be presented, I believe, on Aldo Leopold Day, which is February 28th, I think, or 26th, 28th.
Coming up soon.
It's next Friday.
Last week in February.
Yeah, next Friday in Reeve, and so they're going to present that plan, and that's that's going to be funded as well in the same way. So it's like, there are some things, yes, yeah, well, that's great, we're spending money on, but then things like that where it's like I didn't even know that was even happening, and and it is helping our campus and maybe attract more students. But at the same time, it's a lot of our tuition money, that's being spent on high school, football teams and baseball teams, and it's nice, it's good for community base, but at the same time, I like to see my tuition money going towards more, better causes for our university.
Yeah,
Reeves Union and the Wellness Center are more directly involved with you, whereas the sports complex is sort of auxiliary on the side.
Right, and a lot of students, any student can use, the Health and Wellness Center. You can go there and utilize it, and the same with Reeve Union. With the sports complex, that's more for, a certain amount of students, and the rest of us, we're just paying for it, and like Adam said, it's good for the community and people will go. But at the same time, they don't ask us.
What other things are, besides the fair trade issue and the weeds, what other things are you guys involved in within the community or on campus?
Well, we're also involved with anti-discrimination, a lot of working with diversity and working with acceptance of different sexual preferences and races, and working against any kind of biases on campus. And right now we're actually working with the African American Studies program and the Department of Journalism on a symposium that's going to be in April, I believe. April 10th, if I'm correct, and that's about race in Milwaukee and the power of media there and fixing that problem. So it should be an interesting one. I recommend everybody to go to that.
Okay. Now, there's also a Lake Winnebago Green Party, and we were talking a little bit about this before we started, rolling tape on this show, that there is a difference. I mean, yes, you're both green parties, but there is a very clear and concise difference between what they do and what you do, besides the age difference. I mean, you're a campus-based organization. Can anyone be a member of your organization, or do you just have to be a student at UW Oshkosh?
Well, it is a student organization, so it is mostly limited to students. Anyone can come, but it's student money and everything, so I mean, it's mostly, anyone can come to the events, but to our meetings, it's mostly just students and our director.
All right. And so the differences between the Oshkosh Campus Greens, and that is your official name, and the Lake Winnebago Green Party would be what? Just kind of in a nutshell.
I mean, I guess the Lake Winnebago Green Party is the official, Green Party representation in this area, and they do have Green Party candidates in local, politics, and also they help represent national candidates in certain elections. And at the same time, they work on the broader community issues of the Green Party, I guess. And then for what comes to us, we, like we said, we like to be active on our campus level, as well as the community, but more actively on our campus to kind of spread the Green Party, the 4 basic principles on our campus level, rather than the community, I would say. And it's more to get more students involved, so hopefully that when they maybe leave college, they pursue, maybe enter a group like Winnebago Green Party and continue to be active in their adult lives.
Right, and we support a lot of local candidates, and we'll work with them on the county board, getting on there, or city council, that kind of thing. We work with them. We don't do a lot at the nation level, but we do work locally. And for the most part, this year we've been working at values-based, more on the 4 pillars of the Green Party, which would be ecological wisdom, social justice, peace, and
environment.
And yeah.
Environmental issues.
Is there a presidential candidate out there that appeals to those 4 principles more than any other candidate? Do you have a preference?
I don't know. I mean, I think I saw Barack Obama speak last Friday, and I think he gave a really good speech. And I know Hillary Clinton has been saying, yeah, he gives a good speech, but any solutions, right? But he even talked about that. He addressed that. Yeah, I give a good speech. Is that so bad? But I mean, it's like he's a lot more. He's the most progressive presidential candidate. I mean, I've seen, I guess, since I've been paying attention to. I mean, as far as I guess that's not true. There's a lot of Green Party candidates and candidates that aren't running anymore. But as far as the main candidates right now, I would say Barack Obama, for me personally, would fit the criteria I would set for a presidential candidate.
Do you want to throw in on that, Michelle, or you want to take a pass?
Well, I'm kind of iffy. It seems like some are leaning some ways or another, and if you ask them about an issue, they'll kind of tell you what you want to hear. That's kind of the thing I don't like about a lot of the candidates that are out there right now. But my favorite at this point is Dennis Kucinich. I think he does a lot for all of those 4 pillars, so
Very good.
he would be my vote.
Now, typically, you folks meet on Thursday nights at
Correct.
the time that we're taping this, but due to a scheduling snafu on campus, you were able to be here tonight, and you were also having someone who was supposed to come in tonight, ironically enough, and talk about some of these Miller Bay issues, and that kind of fell through for you guys too. So when I called, it was almost like a real fluke that we were able to put this together.
Right.
So, but usually you meet at 6 p.m. on Thursday nights?
Yeah, 6 p.m. Thursday nights in Rave 217. That is correct.
All right. And if they want more information, who can they contact, or how should they get in touch with someone?
We Oshkosh Campus Greens at Gmail.
Yep, Oshkosh Campus Greens at gmail.com.
Okay.
And otherwise, if you want to stop by the campus, the SLIC, the Student Leadership Involvement Center, which is in Reeve Union, they have information on all the student groups and their meeting times as well there. Otherwise, Michelle and I, if you see us, I guess.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both very much for being here. We're going to take a short break, and then, Michelle, you're going to come back on, or you're going to stay right here, and we're going to be joined by Ann Frish. But I just want to thank both of you for being here. When we think about the future of our country and the future of our communities, I think that, at least for myself, this is the kind of future of our communities that I want to see. And so you're a real credit to, not only the campus, but to our community. So thank you much for not being out there raising Cain like some students do.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Oh,
it's great to be here.
Sure, it was a real pleasure. Now, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Michelle will still be here, and we'll be joined by Ann Frish, who's a retired professor from the university, and we're going to be talking about the Diebold voting machines. So we'll be right back.
We just escaped.
I escaped.
I escaped. by foot.
Run across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there. For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want. Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. As promised, we're now joined by Dr. Ann Frish, a retired professor from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Ann has, among other things, been very involved in, researching and studying these Diebold electronic touchscreen voting machines, however you want to call it. We have been using them here in Winnebago County since 2006, since the fall of 2006. The election that we just voted in February was the third election that we have used these touchscreen machines in. And so we wanted to talk with Ann and Michelle to kind of find out how they've been going with the machines, how things have been working. There were so many things in the beginning when these were first proposed for Winnebago County that, we heard about machines not working right and, security being hacked into and things like that. So what has, you've been studying this and you've kind of been helping her a little bit too, I think, watching the polls and so forth. What's the overall feeling that you have now that we've gone through 3 elections?
Well, let me back up just a little bit.
Sure.
Back in the spring of 2006, the issue came up with the county board. We got to have these one machine in each polling place, we were told, or all hell would break loose. And at the same time, there were a lot of people who were very concerned about the Diebold touchscreen machine. You have tampering with machines, you have vote switching, you have malfunctioning, you have breakdowns on election day, all kinds of problems that were already, public knowledge.
Documented elsewhere, yes.
We're late coming to this, but other states have many voting machines in every polling place. There was a lot of opposition. There were some of the county board supervisors who opposed it, among them Kathy Lennon, I believe Bill Wingren opposed it, Shiloh Rylance and Donna Laurie all opposed the touchscreen machines, principally because people didn't want it. There was issue of cost. How much is it going to cost us? All the unknowns and the bad reputation. But the county board voted for it anyway. So we got curious on how many people actually used those machines.
Can I interrupt and just back
Sure.
up? Because this is good for, before we get to, and I'm sorry for doing this.
Go right ahead.
The Help America Vote Act is what precipitated this,
Absolutely.
right? Can we, and one of the provisions of the Help America Vote Act was to get a machine everywhere in the United States that would be more friendly to the disabled voter
Handicap,
population.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
handicap accessible,
That
if you will.
was the cover story, at least,
Okay,
for
so
that. And
this is a federal law as a result of the
Right.
2000 presidential election fiasco.
Right.
And so this came everywhere in the country to do this. And the city and town clerks in Winnebago County basically made the decision to purchase the Diebold machine, not the county. And so all that the county did, as they said during the debate, was they were a conduit. Rather than have every town and city in Winnebago County buy the Diebold machine, they were going to buy them all together
Right.
using federal money, not local money. So that was the
And
background
distribute
for
them.
it. So
Yeah, that's
you can
right.
say the county made the decision, but in effect, individual towns like the city of Oshkosh had already made that decision before the county voted. Is that correct?
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
The county board, I think, voted to accept the money for the machines.
They did.
Correct?
And
And
distribute them
purchase
back,
all the machines
do them
in one
together.
purchase rather than have each
Right.
one of the individual municipalities do that. But I
That's-
thought that was okay.
That's my understanding. And one of the reasons they wanted to do them all together, and my understanding is that other Diebold equipment was in place, and Diebold would not let any other machine be tested on our system.
Okay. Yeah.
So therefore, let's just go with Diebold.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So, you know, and we did read and hear about on talk radio all these different things about, you know, this happening with Diebold machines in one, you know, polling place or whatever throughout the country. And problem after problem after problem we kept hearing about. And it is well documented out there. Of course, there's two sides to every coin. And so I'm sure that there are other people out there who are saying, you know, hogwash, that's just simply not true. But what have we found here? You know, let's talk specifically about what we have found here during the 3 elections that we have actually used these machines now.
So we did the study. We were curious to see how many people had actually voted on the machines because, you know, were there a lot of people? Were there no people? We just don't know because all those little strips of time machine receipts all go in the sealed bags. Nobody and those numbers ever get reported. Not that they couldn't be, but they just don't. So Dr. Crane Donnelly and I went into the county clerk's office, and they got out the bags, unsealed them, and put the tapes out for us to count. And we logged all the data for 37 out of the 49 polling places in Winnebago County. We did not do the cities of Menasha, Omro, Neenah, or the part of Appleton that's part of Winnebago County. And what we found, what we thought was pretty interesting, that in 2/3 of the polling places, under 8% usage of the touchscreen machines. 1/3, the other 1/3, a little less than 1/3, was about 19 to 17%. And there were 3 polling places that had between 18 and 25%. One place had 25% usage.
Okay.
So that's not a lot of usage.
Does that surprise you?
No. It's interesting. I sort of thought maybe the university where people are really computer savvy, they would want to do touchscreen. Yeah. But in fact, it was just the opposite. Let's see, 1%. And you had an explanation for that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, it's just that we know about machines. We've been working with computers for most of our life, and we just don't trust them that much. We'd rather have a piece of paper, know that this is what we're doing, and, you know, we can see that we've got that down. But, you know, a machine, we know it breaks down. Stuff happens like that, and we know they can be hacked. How many viruses have we had on our computers? So we're just like, yeah, we don't want to deal with it.
So anyway, there were a lot of the counties, 22 out of the 37, that had under 5% usage. So that's not very much. Yeah. So there were some, and I'll read you some quotes from some of the problems they had with TS machines, TSX.
And that's the type of machine?
Yeah, the TSX is the name of the Diebold machine.
Okay.
And we got this information from more publicly available information, which is the chief inspector's reports. And those are all very easily accessible by people in town. one voter started, these are all just the notes that the poll workers make. One voter started to use the TSX voice feature but could not hear it and opted for a ballot. So, you know, we want machines for disabled people, but they didn't work for them. And that sort of reflects what we found in the trial period during the special county board meeting. They just didn't work. One poll worker noted, we're running out of ballots and we'll soon have to use the paper ones done on the copy machine since many people don't want to use the TSX. They miscalculated the number of ballots because they thought people would want to use it. In one place, the salesperson down at Surwas, their representative, installed a new TSX because the TSX was not functioning. And then there was a lot of paper jams. In fact, they were propping up the machine so it would work at just a certain level. In one case, a pin was put in wrong, and so it wasn't printing properly. So you can imagine the disaster if there had to be a recount and the paper had gotten shredded. So those were the kinds of things, those two sources of data and the kind of things that...
Did you interview any disabled voters?
Well, in the study that we're talking about right now was only
just paper
records. We didn't interview anybody.
Yeah.
Then we can fast forward to Tuesday. Michelle was one of my colleagues in the poll watching, and we also did some exit polling. So,
what did you find out?
Well, we went in, and it's hard to say where to start, but we went in and we just started watching, and you know, poll watchers can move around freely, and the only thing they can't see is people's individual ballots, and we couldn't stand right up to the machines and see people's. Anything that was private information was off limits, but we could overhear all the conversations, and we did see a lot of interactions. Most of the paper balloting went pretty smoothly, but there were some problems with the TSX machines. And one of them was that in order to vote to make a preference on either Democrat or Republican, you had to state a preference.
Yep.
You had to say Republican or Democrat. Well, some people didn't want to do that. It's like, I'm an independent, but I still want to vote here. And so people would not do that first step. Therefore, it took them right to the local elections. And I witnessed one person very frustrated because he only got to vote in the local elections. And so the resolution was, and I think that's really fair in the sense of justice, his vote had already counted because he had already pushed the lever and so to speak. That vote had counted only the local election. And so they let him have a paper ballot to vote only in the presidential. And when he came back, I saw him show the clerk or the poll worker that he had only voted in that. So interesting, now you have two voters recorded, one here and one there, but only one real voter. So they have to do some subtractions here and there. That's why you get all this complicated
There were a
stuff.
lot of mistakes in the paper ballot, too. We had about 30 ballots that were rejected by the machine because they voted both in the Democratic and the Republican presidential primary. And they were upset that they couldn't vote in both. So we gave them a new ballot.
Were you a poll worker?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, at least there you can, it won't go in.
Right.
And you tear it up and give it to them.
Right.
I saw that happen many times. So you also had some observations about the poll watching, and then we'll save the exit poll for.
Yeah. I watched, at one place, I watched them set up the TSX, and I felt really bad because the woman that was setting it up was like, you know, I really trust in this machine, you know, it's great, and, you know, and for some people this is a great thing, you know, it's easy for them, and, but then she spent the next 15 to 20 minutes trying to set the dang thing up. She had to get another person over, and then they had a third person, and they had a fourth. They were flipping through the manual. They couldn't figure out how to, you know, use the tape. I mean, let alone if the electronic voting can be, you know, like hacked or whatever. It's, I mean, just the tape. Is there another way we could do this that could be easier for these people to set up? Because we don't have experts setting these up. We have normal everyday citizens who go to one training and are expected to remember every little thing that they're supposed to do to set these up.
And remembered a year later.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember a week later. The machine is incredibly touchy. We had the canister that was tilted a little bit.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't work until we had to call someone to come and get it tilted right.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's a very, very poorly designed and poorly manufactured machine.
Right, and when they were taking the paper off of the canister, the votes, the one had to roll it up on her hand because they didn't have an easier way to take the paper off of the roll. Usually on like cash machines and stuff, you can just take off one of the sides and then just take off the paper, but you can do that. She was rolling it onto her hand. I mean, there's got to be an easier way to do this. But also, as far as like trust with the machine, I noticed that there were a lot of people that were saying, you know, I would never trust these machines. There's one person who I noticed used it for the primary, but then she said after one of the poll workers said, well, wasn't that easy? And she was like, well, I still don't trust it, and I won't use it for the general election. And you know, it's...
You know, the voters with the other machine don't trust it either. There's a little counter on there, and they put their ballot in, and then they'll come to you and they say, it didn't count my ballot. Well, they didn't know what the number was before they put their ballot in, and so they have no reference. So then I have to go back and I say, well, there were this many people that voted on the machine, and you were number such and such, and your ballot did count. They don't believe you. I mean, so there's mistrust on the other machine as well, a different sort of mistrust.
Well, I think after the 2000 election, there's just general mistrust with the voting process.
Sure. But, you know, I mean, don't you think that some of these things, you know, having difficulty remembering how to set up a machine and so forth, I mean, that could happen, I think, with any machine. A paper ballot machine that maybe is a new style of machine or something, you know, it's learning something new. And, you know, that's not to say I support the Diebold machines.
Right.
I don't have a feeling necessarily one way or another. I think that people who have handicapped issues need some way of voting. I'm not sure that this is the best way, but I mean,
and on that I think we all agree on that.
Sure. But I mean, I mean, wouldn't you also agree, though, that setting up machines that are new and innovative could be difficult no matter what kind of machine it is?
Sure. I saw that in the general election last year. They had a terrible time out in, I think it was West High School. Just a terrible time setting it up. But my own reaction was not, that proves Diebold is a lousy machine or anything. It's like, well, we all have trouble when we're starting up things, when we're learning new machines and so forth.
I'm the youngest person in my area. There's some people that are, I'm sure, in their late 70s. They're there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it takes us an hour and a half or 2 hours to close after 8. These people are absolutely dead tired. I'm dead tired, and I'm 15 years younger than some of them. So there's a human error. I don't think there's an election that there's not human error on it, just because of the length of the day, the age of the poll workers.
Yeah, and it's not just that, though. With the touch screen, you just notice a lot of breakdowns. I was at another place besides the one I started at, and it just breaks down, and you have to, you know, get the city clerk over there who's really busy with this whole thing, and she has to take time to like go over and fix it. It just because of like one missed question or something else, and I think the problem was that they took the card out too soon, and so then it was just messed up, and they couldn't get anyone else to vote on it, and so then they're wasting that time to get that done with, and I think there's just general errors there that are taking time, like aside from human errors.
What's the solution? I mean, there is this federal law that mandated a more voter-friendly machine for disabled. The county went with this, right or wrong. So what are your suggestions for how do we remedy this?
Well, certainly, you know, we've got one machine, so I would say creative avoidance would be a good thing. You know, just
don't
like
use it.
if people want to use it, or if they have specific disabilities that can serve, let them use it, but not promote it. Because we did notice some promotion of the use of the machine, or you did at least. I didn't, but you did.
A little bit.
But your statistics prove that promotion, at least to now, isn't working because very few people use it. Right?
but in fact, in wards 7 and 8, the use of touchscreen machine was 14.6, or let's say 15%. In the general election, it was 12.
Okay.
And in 9 and 10 at Our Savior's Lutheran, it was 26%, up from 12%.
So promotion is working.
That's the place that you notice the promotion,
Yeah,
at least for
bit.
some part of the day.
What kind of promotion? Tell us about that.
Well, I noticed one guy was just kind of hanging around. He wasn't a poll worker or anything, but he was just, people are coming up to get, their paper or plastic ballot. That's what they're calling paper or plastic for a while. And, yeah. And this one woman was saying, well, maybe I'm just, not brave or whatever, but I'm just going to go with paper. And this one guy was just like, oh, come on. And they're like, be brave, you can do it. And she's like, okay, I guess I'll try it.
But he wasn't a poll worker.
But he wasn't a poll worker. He was just standing around.
Well,
we are encouraged as poll workers to promote the machine, to encourage more people to use it. That's a fact.
Oh,
okay.
I see.
And
Okay, well, I suspected as
if
much.
you spin 10 years ahead, the elections that in 10 years are going to be much more sophisticated, maybe less trustworthy than now. There are some places where ballots are being mailed out. State of Oregon, all ballots are submitted by mail. I'm from North Dakota. The rural counties, they vote by mail. So there'll be all, depending on the demographics of your area, things are going to change. This is just the beginning of a huge change. And if we have any sort of fraud in November, and I'm predicting we will, I think it'll be close, I think it will be litigious. You haven't seen anything yet. We'll have a national ID card for every person with our photo on it. That's coming. There will be all sorts of more rules, more machines, because elections now are under the microscope in terms of fraud and what you've discovered on this machine.
But before we get to Orwellian here, let's think about California, Colorado, Florida. All those states are moving back to paper ballots.
Right.
And there was some question about the absentee ballots, because first of all, if you have your ballot in your home, you can show it to your boss, who can say, okay, that's worth $25. They get lost in the mail. So there's some real problems with mail ballots too. So that's not a panacea either.
It is for very rural areas in the country.
Well, I'm not saying that we should never use it.
Want to do it in Milwaukee? No.
I'm just saying there are some real problems, and opens up all the possibility of ballots getting lost and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that there was sort of a promotion of, help people use those machines. And I was concerned when we published our data on the internet that would sort of prompt a response.
It varies from voting district to voting district. It's not universal, but you do have this new machine. And let's say you're down to the last 3 hours of the voting day, and you've only got 25 paper ballots left for one of the 2 districts in your ward. The encouragement then is have them vote by the touch. We don't want to send you out any more ballots.
Well, didn't you say your experience was that there wasn't much promotion of it where you voted?
Oh, no, not where I voted. I went in there and they didn't even mention the machine. I just gave them my piece of paper. They handed me a paper ballot.
Yeah, that's true of where I voted
Really?
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
All 3 elections that we've had the machines, I've never once heard it even mentioned.
A lot of the elderly poll workers are scared of the machine, to be very honest with you. It's hard to put together. It's, what's going to happen at the end.
Yes, we've heard all of those things.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe we should talk about our exit poll if you want to.
Please do. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Exit poll. So part of the day we spent observing, and then part of the day we spent doing exit poll. And basically we were interested in people's use of the machine. Well, actually, we wanted to know how their voting went. And virtually everybody said, oh, it was real easy. Fine. There were a few people who had problems. That's to be expected. We said, paper or plastic? And we actually said, did you use a machine or paper?
Sure.
And some people would say, paper. Like, don't even think about the machine. Some people say, well, I used the machine. No, it's easy. It was very smooth. No problems. But you observed that it took longer.
Yeah, I actually noticed that there was one guy who came in. He was registering to vote. And he went over, he voted, and he was ready to leave when this other guy the whole time was at the voting machine. He was at the touchscreen the entire time when this other guy was doing this. I noticed that generally it took people longer time at the electronic machine than it did with the paper ballots.
Maybe just because it's new. I mean,
It could be.
I think I would take, if I was going to use it, I would
thing.
take longer.
But
because I would not, I'd want to make sure I wasn't making a mistake or something.
But still, people have to be instructed. They have to get the plastic. They have to fit it in. They have to sort of, and we're all used to paper. So that was part of the feedback we got.
There are two stages though with the paper ballot. You go over and you mark it, and by the time you get to the machine, you're just, whereas with a touchstone, you're in front of that machine all the time. You're not marking your ballot somewhere else.
Right,
So,
but then they have to give the plastic card back to the poll worker. And I noticed that there were a lot of people that had to wait, you know, because there were people coming up and they wanted to get their paper plastic ballot. And so they were waiting, you know, just about as long as the paper ballot. People can go in and put theirs in as long as the machine is taking it, not rejecting the paper.
It's clearly quicker with a paper ballot. No question about that. Huh?
But maybe in time it won't be.
It might.
I mean, you talk about new things. I mean, even the newer cars now, they have so many different features on them. You know, I mean, when you get a new car nowadays, you have to, even though most of us have been driving for years, well, not you, but most of us have been, you know, you have to sit down and really study the owner's manual almost to figure out how some of these contraptions on the new car works.
And you can have a car or a computer now for years and years and never know how to, like, how do I do this or that. But we found one other very interesting thing. We then asked people, because in each of the polling places there was one ward that was in the new 14th district. So we wanted to know how people were voting on that. We wanted to actually make predictions, and we actually predicted correctly that Donna Laurie and Claude Thompson would be the candidates. But a very unscientific poll, so it was just chance that turned out that way. But what people told us when we asked them, did you vote for county board, was, I would say a good half of them that we asked said, well, no, because we didn't know anything, we didn't see anything in the paper about the county board. And it seems to be true that there's been a virtual blackout on the county board race in the Northwestern.
No. We had them on this show.
We did.
Oh yeah, I know. I know. But people said, I didn't see anything in the paper about it. So I'm really concerned about this because, you know, Northwestern talks about, you know, democracy and participation of people, but then this whole race has been ignored. So I think that's kind of a serious, kind of uneasy kind of thing that we turned up.
Well, and you know, I mean, it doesn't help with the primary at all, but perhaps the Northwestern will do something for the general election, especially since there are several contested races in the general election, and I think that there was, you know, only the one primary. There might have been one in another city, but at least in Oshkosh there was only one primary. So not that again excuses them for not doing anything. Well, that should be the reason
to really focus on it. It's a new district, it's a merged district. It was, according to a lot of people, gerrymandered, and so.
I wonder why people think that.
Well, because they're little bits and pieces
because of the way the maps were drawn,
and because it was very political, and the issue of the radical cut of the county board was all part of that. So.
Well, so you're going to continue this?
Yes, we're looking for poll watchers. It's really fun. All four people that were there had a great time. It was really fun and interesting, and we all kept notes. And
terrific. Well, thanks to both of you for being here. Michelle, you for the whole hour, and Ann for this last half hour, and we'll have you back as time goes on and see how things continue to improve or decline. We'll see.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.